Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Simple Low Carb Lifestyle Podcast. On today's podcast, we're going to discuss the scales. You know, those wonderful things that sit on the bathroom floor, maybe it's in your bedroom. I doubt it's in the kitchen, but those things you step on, you look at and go, oh my goodness, there's a number that I don't like. And it dictates what we do and don't do. Many times, the reason we are trying to live a low carb or keto lifestyles because we don't like the number that we see between our feet when we look down on the scales. So a couple of things that I'd like to discuss today about the scales in particular. One of the phrases that I like is that the scale it's a liar. It's not a good, it doesn't tell you all that's going on in your body. All it shows you is your relationship to gravity and it pulling down on your body. So a couple of things. First of all, I always recommend don't weigh daily, plain and simple. Do not weigh yourself every day. Your weight is going to fluctuate. You're going to be up 2 pounds, down 2 pounds. You're going to be up 5 pounds. You're going to be even. It fluctuates. Weight loss is not linear. So it's not going to start at X weight of, just say right now, I'm at 195 pounds, and it's going to just be a pound or two every single day, and it's not a straight line down. It's up and down, back and forth. And if you can't handle that, you need to not step on the scales on a daily basis. It used to drive me nuts. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't stand it. Now I do weigh every day, and the reason for that is so that I can see with what I'm eating how it affects my body. I'm for the last several months have been at the same 5 pounds, give or take. So I've been anywhere between 194 and 199. And I bounce back and forth in that area, and I'm completely happy with that. But when you're trying to lose weight, which is a phrase I don't really care for, but we'll stick with it. But when you're trying to lose weight, when you're trying to get healthy, weighing daily can be very frustrating. It can also it can be detrimental because you may look at it and say, you know what, it's not working, I'm done. And you give in instead of continuing on. My recommendation is to weigh every other week. Pick a day, pick a time, and keep it consistent. So for example, maybe it's every Sunday morning, as soon as you get out of bed, you hit the scales, record your weight, and see where you were from 2 weeks prior. One thing to keep in mind is that if you're just starting out in this simple low carb lifestyle, that you will lose weight much quicker the first couple of weeks as compared to later on in your journey. I've been at it for 3 years now, and I'm not pushing hard to lose weight. I'm happy maintaining at this point in time, and I am completely comfortable with that. But that's not I have not always been there. I have not always been comfortable with maintaining where I'm at. And that's why I recommend every 2 weeks is when you weigh, compare, and go from there, as compared to a daily weigh-in, which can be very, very frustrating. I know, I've been there, I've done that. I definitely do not recommend a daily weigh-in, especially if that number fluctuating is going to drive you bonkers. Again, keep in mind, as I've already stated, your weight is going to fluctuate. So you may 2 weeks later actually be at the same weight. You may have actually gained a pound or two. You may have lost. Obviously, what you want to see is a weight loss. You want to see that number go down. But keep in mind, even weighing every other week, it may go up, it may stay the same, or it may go down. Keep that in mind ahead of time. Understanding that is a completely normal, because again, it's not a linear progression. You don't just gradually lose weight. It's up and down from day to day, from week to week. So keep that in mind. Along with those lines, keep in mind that just because the weight, let's just say you go for 2 or 3, I guess that would be 4 or 6 weeks of weighing, and you're looking at it going, the scales have not budged. I'm not losing weight. Well, are you losing fat? And you may be sitting there going, I can't be losing fat because I'm not losing weight. Well, that's not necessarily the case, because I have done this. Lots of other people have done this where, man, the scales are not moving. But you know what? I cinched my belt up another notch or two. I took a tape measure and measured my waist and my stomach, and I'm losing inches. I am losing fat, but I'm not losing weight. That there's a big difference between the two. Just because you're not losing weight does not mean you're not losing fat. I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds like that's just not possible. It doesn't make any sense. How can I be losing fat and not losing weight? I don't have a good um, physiological answer for that, other than your body is recomposing itself. It is body recomposition. And if you are doing any type of exercise, you could be losing fat and gaining muscle, for example. So you're exchanging what you don't want and earning what you do want. So keep in mind, just because the scales aren't moving over maybe a 4 to 6 week period doesn't mean your body is not improving. Pay attention to how your clothes fit. Pay attention to how loose they are. Did you go down a size? I always recommend, and we'll get into some of this in another podcast, getting a tape measure and take measurements. Measure yourself every 2 to 4 weeks to see not just a weight progress, but you're going to see a physical progress with that. Take pictures so that you can again, 2 to 4 weeks, look at the pictures and go, wow, I can see I'm thinner in the face. If you do a profile picture, you may notice that your stomach is, well, for lack of better words, hanging differently. It's looking better. You're leaning out, and yet you can see all those progressions, but yet the scales may not have even moved in the process. So keep that in mind. Just because they're not moving does not mean your body is not improving. Again, that was something that personally frustrated me. It got on my nerves, and it's like, well, wait a minute. There's nothing wrong here. Sadly, it took me a long time to realize that. And I remember about a year and a half ago when I was in one of those phases, and I realized, okay, I'm not going to give in and give up, because it's not going to do me any good. That's going to just throw all that hard work out the window. And then one day I put my belt on and I tightened it down an extra notch and realized, wait a minute, I can't believe how much better my clothes are fitting. I started paying attention to, this will be again another episode for one Thursday, but I started paying attention to the non-scale victories, because the scales don't tell the whole story. Also, in reference to the scales, if you're like me, there's going to be a time you're going to stumble and fall and have something that you shouldn't have eaten. It may be a meal, it may be a day, maybe a week. For myself, it was usually a meal or a day or two, and I'd go and weigh myself, and I'd look at the scales and go, oh my goodness, I just gained 10 pounds. Why do I even bother? And I'd quit. I'd give in and say, oh, I'm done. If I can put 10 pounds back on that easily, why would I want to continue to do this? And unfortunately, I did not understand what was going on in my body when I originally would give in. Now I understand what's going on. And I have, in the last three years, had that meal or two, stepped on the scales and went, there's that 10 pounds I'm expecting to gain, quote unquote gain. And I started paying attention to my body on top of that. So what happens if you do have a cheat day or a cheat meal and you notice the scales jump? Don't worry, don't quit, don't give in. You didn't gain 10 pounds of fat. Your clothes still fit for the most part like they did before. Generally what happens is when you reincorporate carbs and sugars and stuff like that, what's going to happen is your body is going to start retaining water again, just like it was before. So you're not gaining fat, you're gaining water. And it'll take a week or two for that to dissipate and for your body to get back to normal. Once you get right back to eating that simple low carb lifestyle and continue with it, you're going to go back to where you were and continue. Now, yes, that means that's a week or two of progress you may have lost as a result of having a cheat day or a cheat meal, or just giving in and eating something because you had a bad day at work, or you just had a rough day with the kids, whatever it might be that caused you to eat something you shouldn't have. Keep in mind, you didn't gain 10 pounds of fat. It will disappear again within a week or two, and get right back at it. Again, the scales aren't a predictor of fat loss and or fat gain. It just shows you how much you weigh in relationship to gravity pulling down on your body. The ultimate goal, yes, I know we all come into this thinking, I need to lose weight, but the ultimate goal is fat loss and health. The scales generally don't they don't give you good indicators of that. So a few things to keep in mind with the scales. Weigh every 2 weeks. Especially if you're one of those people that is very prone to um, getting emotional over seeing a number on the scales or seeing them going up and down and up and down. And if that bothers you, weigh every 2 weeks. Keep in mind, your weight is going to fluctuate. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. It's not a linear progression. And learn that early. It's going to make a very big difference in your weight loss journey. Also, remember that just because the weight is not changing, the scales aren't moving in the direction you like, that doesn't mean you're not losing fat. Body recomposition is a whole lot more than just a number on a scale. So you can actually be losing fat. Your clothes can be fitting better. You're losing inches around your body, and the number on that piece of machine between your toes doesn't move. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's the way it goes. And also keep in mind, if you're like I used to be and you have that cheat day, or you just give in because, man, I haven't had this in a while, and you look at the scales and go, I gained 10 pounds in one day, I give up. I can't believe I gained 10 pounds. Well, you didn't gain 10 pounds of fat. Again, remember, it's water retention. Big difference to gaining 10 pounds of fat. It'll take a week or two for that to dissipate. And again, pay attention to how you feel. You will notice after having a meal or a day like that, your body's probably going to ache for a week or two. And pay attention to that and notice how it dissipates and should disappear as your body gets rid of what you ate and gets back to normal. And also, today's episode is brought to you by our Select Savory Snacks. A little history on Select Savory Snacks. After I started Select Savory Seasonings, I attended several low-carb conferences for 2 years, and I had a lot of people ask me, hey, do you know of a good, healthy, sugar-free beef jerky? And every time I said no. The one or two, really only one that I knew of, was truly sugar-free, but it was like chewing on a tire. It was it's cooked and or smoked, and unfortunately, when you do that to beef, it gets very hard to chew. So I really didn't have any good recommendations. Long story short, I looked into starting Select Savory Snacks and found what's called Biltong, which is a South African delicacy. And Biltong, if I can get my camera to do what it's supposed to here, of course not. But Biltong is air-dried beef. It is, I mean, what beef jerky is to the United States, Biltong is to South Africa. The differences between them, Biltong doesn't use any sugars, fillers, additives like soy sauce, and a lot of jerkies use maltodextrin today, not just sugar, but brown sugar and all sorts of ingredients that really are not good for our bodies. Our Biltong is actually made by a company that is the one of the leading manufacturers of Biltong in South Africa, and they are now in the United States. And the ingredients in our Biltong is beef, vinegar, salt, spices, rosemary, dried beef powder, and dried vinegar powder. It's very clean. There's no sugar of any kind in there. Per serving is less than 1 gram of carbohydrates. And you may go, well, how are there carbs if there's no sugar? Well, seasonings do have sugar in them, not sugar, carbohydrates in them. It's a natural byproduct of having seasonings and spices in there. You're also getting, per ounce, you're looking at 16 grams of proteins. It's a very high protein, 3 grams of fat, and it's a great snack for on the go. If you're traveling, you got a busy day and you don't have really time for lunch, for example, it's a great grab and go type thing for that also. If it was up to my kids, they would eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Unfortunately, I can't afford to do that. As you can imagine. But our Select Savory Snacks original dried Biltong, air-dried Biltong, that's the other difference between Biltong and beef jerky. Beef jerky is always cooked. It's smoked, it's dehydrated. It goes through a cooking process of some kind that actually reduces the protein yield, also makes it a little more chewy, harder to chew. That's why a lot of them use soy sauce, for example, to try to keep it tender. Biltong is air dried, so it's marinated. It's hung to dry for up to 2 weeks in a temperature and humidity controlled environment, and then it's sliced up thin. And everyone that has tried it is amazed at how tender it is, how flavorful it is compared to beef jerky. It's nowhere Now that I've tried other jerkies that have flavoring and stuff in them, and they taste very artificial. After being low carb and keto for so long, I can't stand the taste of beef jerky. But our original Biltong is been very popular. It's something I think you would thoroughly enjoy. If you'd like to give it a try, go to selectsavory.com. That's where we have both our Biltong and our spices. Don't forget to use coupon code PODCAST. That'll give you 15% off your first order. And that'll work across the board, whether you're getting Biltong spices or a little bit of both. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we'll talk to you again soon.